Decided to tune into the Garden Mama Show today. We are going to talk about one thing and another, but the business of the program is always you, whether it's phone calls or texts. Sometimes people have shouted out things to me over the week, and I have a couple of those to bring to you today. But whatever it is that you are interested in talking about in the gardening world, that's why I'm here. It's a joy to be here and always a great treat to talk with y'all. I gotta say, I did not know. I don't think about these things. We try to figure out when we're full grown as humans. And recently we have come to understand that whole business of your brain reforming, the plasticity of your brain and its maturity is not happening as quickly as we might have thought. Because we didn't study it past, I think 24 was the age where we figured it had already peaked out. But it actually continues to develop longer than that. I think anybody alive knows these things. But I didn't know that Tyrannosaurus Rex took 40 years to get its maturity. Now, that tells me, and we know they lived a long time, they were present on the earth, for vast amounts of time, but it's an interesting society, and whether it's animals or people, where we recognize that maturation doesn't happen when we thought it might. So I like that. I think that's kind of interesting stuff. I really, really do. Daylight savings time starts tonight. I don't know how to tell you that. You probably didn't want to hear it, but here we are.
I'm just glad it wasn't this morning.
Truly, yes. We would have a problem. We would have been here for a while, but we'd have been at the wrong time, so it wouldn't have worked. This is the spring forward part, by the way, in case you didn't happen to know that. Go to sleep and go to sleep at midnight tonight. It'll be springing forward. I think that happens in around what would have been 2 a.m. becomes 3 a.m. Is that how that works? I don't know.
Yeah, we would have been a little late maybe. Or I don't know. We would have been on air for an hour, but nobody would have been here.
Nobody
right?
would have been. I think that's
right, yeah.
I think that's how that works out. Yeah. It has the church. You always think about the people that either show up or miss church on daylight savings.
Yeah.
Because of that. What time is it? What day is it?
I'm one of those that, like I said, I always kind of freak out a little bit on the Saturday. I'm always wondering, they say, well, it's Sunday, but the night of Saturday as it rolls over. But my brain doesn't process that so clearly. So I wake up every Saturday or whatever day it is.
It's like, what time is it?
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like I've missed something. I
well,
was like
instead
that
of
this
being 8:08 Central Time, this would be 9:08. 9:08, and right. So we would be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
That's what I was worried about.
Now, I will say
when
this.
I pulled up and saw your car here, I'm like, oh, God, what did I do?
I had to make coffee. I had to come in a little early today. But I will say this, that plenty of my radio buddies set the clock on Saturday for the Sunday change because everybody has that kind of, all of us who are that conscious of time anyway, have a little bit of a tendency to sort of anticipate what's coming up next. So that all starts tomorrow. There's really not any reason to argue about it. It's a thing that just is. But it's not the most fun. It's not one of the things that really keeps us happy. Everybody wants to argue about it. It does give us something to talk about, but still, daylight savings time starts tonight. Something going on, well, here in about 20 minutes in Brookhaven, the Camellia Show is happening, and our buddy Bill Perkins there, of course, I think he's their illustrious president, but he's my friend anyway. So, anyway, he sent us a bunch of information about it, which I'll get to you in this morning. But it begins at the Camellia plant sale starts at 8:30, and the show starts at 8:30. This is the, hold on to your hats, 73rd. 73 years, my friends. Do you know how long that takes to get a plant society to last that long? Good grief. Brookhaven building at the 1154 Beltline Road near the Brookhaven Airport, The entry of blooms is beginning this morning, and you'll have public viewing after the judging this afternoon. If you have never wandered yourself into this show, you should go. Brookhaven not only grows magnificent, the whole area, the whole group grows such beautiful camellias, but they're so nice and they have such a good time showing off. They've got all the categories. If you've got a beautiful striped camellia at your house, cut it off and go over there. Go see them. They'll let you enter. And you'll have a really good time there with them, too, because they're such great folks.
Question for you regarding camellias.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you'll be driving in Mississippi or Louisiana in certain areas, and you'll see something that looks like a camellia on the side of the road, like a tree. It's the pink flowers, the beautiful green foliage on it. Is that a camellia?
It might be.
Yeah, it is more of a wild kind. Because
Well,
as I look at the trees,
some do escape.
Yeah.
And some fall off a truck. You know what I mean? There's you can find a camellia out there in the woods somewhere from time to time.
But they're not like, because I see
they're
them.
not native.
Yeah, okay, that's my question. So these are something else. I've got to figure out what they are.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Yes. That's I've always, one of the books I never wrote, a friend of mine pitched this and we didn't ever get a publisher to get it, was what is that on the side of the road, and to just take the interstate system in chunks. And they do it in some places, wildflower trails and that kind of thing out in Texas, I believe. But we just thought it would be interesting to catalog what all was out there depending on what time of year it was, because there's such interesting plants. And a lot of them are those plants that only emerge in a disturbed soil. So you don't see the same plant right next to the road that you see in the woods, even if there's sunlight over there, the same levels of sunlight, just because that over there hadn't been disturbed. But yeah, sometimes you'll see camellias out in there. This particular week, though, the driving has been just beautiful. Between yellow jasmines and red buds and, all of our good friends in the spring flowering shrub world, it's just been gorgeous. I'm enjoying all of that. Speaking of flowers, Flower Growers of Mississippi next class is March the 17th. Please sign up for that. You can get in touch with me or with Donnie Yowell, and we'll be happy to have you join our merry band. You can find them on Facebook. Flower Growers of Mississippi 2 is the name of that group. If you're in the Garden Mama group and you're wondering why you did not get a post today, it's because Facebook decided that the Garden Mama group doesn't exist. That happens every now and then. They can't find themselves, but we'll find it. You'll hear from me at another point. It's we know we exist. Just because Facebook doesn't make any difference. I also have one more shout out today, and that is to Renee Keith and the Purvis Women's Club. I had the opportunity this week to speak to the Richland Florence Garden Club. Y'all are so sweet. Thank you. We had such a good time. Smart too. Sharp. And good gardeners. But what I presented, I'd like to bring something to the person who invited me. And in this case, I was able to bring a beautiful bee pin. That's right, like a bee, the insect. Which I was able to present to Gaynell, but it came from Renee Keith and the Purvis Women's Club because it supports Heifer International. Now, if you don't know about Heifer International, go to heifer.org. Doesn't everybody in Mississippi know how to spell heifer? I'm not sure. H-E-I-F-E-R.
H-E-I,
you
right.
should be able to know how to spell that. But it's one of those things that is just a delight. And I've been part of a group that supports heifer with donations for goats and cows and things over the years, but this is to support the pollinators, which we have been saying today seem to be getting along pretty well because we're pretty pollinated. The whole world is yellow right now.
Yeah, well, today is opening day for spring turkey. And so March 7th through 13th. So there'll be a lot of young men, young ladies out there today that will be absolutely covered in yellow. They'll go out in their beautiful pressed camo that's so ready for the season. And by the time you walk out of that thicket, it's just going to be yellow everywhere.
Yeah,
and if you don't see that, then you've got some kind of
we need to know where that
I need
is.
to know what you're doing.
Yeah, we need to know about that.
I think Nellie and I both woke up this morning with a layer and sheen of pollen.
Oh, come on, everywhere. My car looks like it's been dipped, and I realize it's going to rain, and that's what happens. But, the pollinators are getting along just fine today.
My bird dog looks like he's been dipped in yellow. When I wash him, I've been telling him, I'm going to give you a hosing. And when we do, he'll get back to almost like bleach color white.
Sure.
It will.
Yeah. He's got distinct colors except for the pollen.
Yeah, the pollen definitely dinges it up a little bit.
That's funny. And now, these are the things that we appreciate. These are also the things that, frankly, I don't want to tell y'all this. It may not be summer yet. Feels like it. Feels like spring going into summer. But don't take your tenderest house plants out yet. They'll just get covered up in pollen, and it's probably going to be a little chilly for them in another week or two in Zone 8. Mm-hmm. Not in Zone 9. In Zone 7, y'all are not even thinking about it. I get that. Y'all are still figuring out whether or not you remembered to water them last week in the house. I know. I've been there, done that, and it is a thing. But it is important to understand that we want to bring our plants outside and let them get a little bit of the humidity, a little bit of the normal conditions, and let them transition into what is, of course, eventually a heat bath down the way. Don't be in too big a hurry. Give yourself a chance to let them get yourself ready for it before you take your plants outside.
Well, and if you were like my mother, who was so excited to see all of the ferns and everything that are on, she goes, I got to go get some ferns. So we had a great conversation last week about ferns. You had the Boston, the Kimberly, and the asparagus. Oh, she got one of each. And then there was 3 of each. So, but if you were in that mindset, you be careful because you may have to pull them back.
Just keep a watch. If it's going to be 40 or below, even 45 for ferns, just take them down off their hangers and let them have a little nestle together in the corner of the porch. They'll be okay, but you don't want to damage them at the beginning of the system. That's for sure.
I got pressed. Richard pressed me earlier in the week. He goes, "What do you think about the weather? We're going to have another snap," and that's I bet we will have something, but I don't believe it'll be overly like freezing temps. But
I just think it'll be chilly for a bit.
It'll be chilly for a couple 3 days,
and then people will miss that when it goes away and it's screaming hot again.
Yeah, it's going to be.
I did have another shout out I should have done already. The International Paralympics is happening this weekend. So if you find yourself inside with the rain falling and you can't find the baseball or basketball, whatever you were if the baseball game is in the rain, you may want to change. Excuse me. See, every day this pollen thing is crazy.
With the picture that's up, yeah.
Okay. But at any rate, this is the Paralympics weekend, and it's an amazing show. It's a joy to watch. The pleasure of seeing people accomplish things that I certainly can't accomplish always makes me happy. And it's also true that the competitive spirit is a joy to watch. So,
and Kathy is getting ready. She says she is in Zone 8, and she's redoing a bed, and she just brought a Coreopsis, yarrow, agapanthus, and a coneflower perennial. When will it be okay to actually plant those, though?
You're good. You're really good. Yeah, you're really good. If I thought it was going to freeze, I would tell you to hold on to them for a little while. But when you look at Coreopsis and yarrow and agapanthus and coneflowers are all perennials. They would be in the ground now, and they'd be just about to get started sprouting. So unless you think it's actually going to freeze, they're fine. And indeed, have a couple of weeks to get their roots established before everything kicks off into deep spring is real good for the perennials. I'm not advising that you go out and dig up and start dividing stuff that's barely in bloom, but when you purchase plants at this point, certainly perennials can get into that world.
Well, and as we roll through this storm system that we have coming through over the next couple of days, it'll blow through. I mean, March the 12th, we will still be seeing some of the rain blowing through. Looks like it's going to be pretty heavy duty by the 12th. Mm-hmm. So, just be careful out there. As you got stuff out there with blooms, you might want to, the delicate stuff.
If you have flowers you can pick, you certainly want to do that. That includes those camellias that are still in bloom. And I'm always about that. Now, if you've just made a bed and it's going to rain 2 inches and you don't feel like that bed can take it, cover it up. You may not want to plant it yet, but you can certainly cover it up. And if you've got plants in it that you feel like are vulnerable or might float, put on some heavier mulch. It'll be okay.
It's going to be a pretty interesting week, though, as both of these fronts get through the weekend, and we'll have more blowing through as the week comes in around the 12th, 13th, 11th, 12th, 13th. And then after you get after the 13th, it looks like it's just blue skies, and I don't see really anything.
That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, the cold fronts are stuck up around the Dakotas a week out, so
they can stay there.
You got about a week. You got a week of decent weather, warm weather,
they can
and rain.
Absolutely stay there.
But pay attention outside of that 13th, and we'll continue, because I don't know. You may get something.
No, we can't know either, because sometimes things change. The one that I'm watching now in terms of driving around out here and going south today is like, well, here's one and then there's the other. So, okay, take a look.
Double action.
Mike, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what our contest is that he wants to do. So send me some more details. And we'll talk about it.
He called a moment ago, and his voice is hurting as a result of being pollen. A man that's out in the yard working hard and the pollen. But he said that his milk containers, the crates, were doing well.
Oh, good.
The red,
crates.
white, and blues.
Okay,
and
good. He's planted potatoes in crates.
He got potatoes in there. And
I was thinking milk cartons, with people's pictures on them. Be good if we could. If we could identify plants and put them on the side of that milk carton, that might be fun. But it would be totally impractical. Yeah. So,
but everything's moving along, he says. So
good,
that's kind of what he was referring to, I'm sure. And He has them out in the yard. He's not got light on them. He's not got them sheltered. He said just let them sit out and do
No,
their
they're
thing.
potatoes. They don't care.
They don't care. They want to be eaten.
Well, the potatoes are going to grow if you give them the opportunity. You will certainly get more potatoes and stronger ones if you're able to fertilize and make sure that the water doesn't float them. But if they get real wet for a couple of days, they'll dry out and keep going. They're tough. They're tougher than they look sometimes, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, coming up, they don't look like the toughest little thing. They're a little dainty, but...
It's because they're related to tomatoes. You know that there are
Really?
potato leaf, those two things are very closely related to each other. And so there are some tomato varieties that leaves look much more like potatoes than they do like tomatoes. So that's one of those funny things that you horticulture people have weird senses of humor, she said, as a horticulture person. We will put up leaves and ask you what plant that is. And there's always one in there that's actually a tomato, but it looks like a potato, just because we think that's funny.
Well, Alvin and Brandon said he has some seeds, potatoes that only have a single eye. Would it be necessary to cut them? And that's a question. I'm curious, like the eye on the potato.
No, you can plant
and all
that
this
whole.
stuff. So what is he referring to here, he says?
Okay, when you leave a potato in your kitchen too long and it develops a little sprout,
Yeah,
well, that's an eye.
Okay.
That's a growing point. It's the potato saying, hey, I have other things to do. And it does change the starch inside the potato. So the potato itself may not be as tasty as it was before it developed, before it started putting its energy into the little growing point. It's been there too long. It's tired of you. I saw a picture the other day, this picture of somebody's counter, and there was a sprouted onion and a sprouted potato. She said, you think I hadn't cooked soon enough? I think you missed those. Yes, that's true.
Last time I went to the cabin, I had the potatoes that were in the crisper. One of them reached out and grabbed me.
Exactly.
I was like, whoa, hold on now. Yeah, the arms on this thing got a little long.
They're going to go.
Yeah, so I'm curious what they look like now.
No
a little
question.
culture going up there.
No question about that. Fun stuff, though. Good things to be growing. A lot of folks have got lettuce and chard and even beets and beet greens and that sort of thing going right now. So those are all things that I also advise you go ahead and get picked before the rain gets to you. We're going to let one of our very, very favorite pieces of music play here, but we'll be right back. You want to talk about something that would be hard to learn how to do? Paralympic snowboarding.
Oh, goodness.
Brenna Huckabee is a Baton Rouge native, three-time gold medalist at the Paralympics. I can't imagine doing it once. Okay, I mean, I can't imagine snowboarding in most of my body works. But what an incredible spirit, just to be able to gather all that together and say to yourself, let's go. Delightful, just delightful. So I encourage y'all, sit in a little rainy weather. Your baseball game's going to get rained out, so you may as well watch a little Paralympics.
Yeah,
or at least delayed or something.
They've done a good job of moving it around. Baseball, so I think...
well, good, y'all. I'm not trying to tell people not to listen to baseball, because we want them to.
Wow, I think there's very little that's going to happen today.
Well, so today's going to be tough.
They maneuvered it around.
Yeah,
and
today's going to be tough.
Ole Miss will play a game tomorrow, and I think State plays really early, like 10, only local. So, and then you've got basketball today, too, starting around lunch. So it's a juggling act with the weather.
I have to tell you, to me, there's nothing more fun than a huge thunderstorm and a great basketball game, and I'm there when I'm in the game at the court, and it's the whole thing's just rocking and rolling, and outside it's just horrible. It's one of those dichotomies, No,
let's just hang around here for a bit.
We were laughing about fundraisers the other day. This person told me that I made this up, but I didn't. There really was a thing called donkey basketball. And they would it drove the maintenance crew, needless to say, in the gym crazy when they would bring in the donkeys. But they did have people riding donkeys and playing basketball. Didn't last very long, but it's one of those, we human beings are so funny. Mm-hmm. We think up all sorts of stuff. I have a feeling there's probably, before goat yoga, there was something else too.
I have a good one for you. My freshman year at Auburn, I was a Pi Kappa Alpha. I had pledged playing baseball. Yeah. And, I'm from Mississippi and just decided, hey, met a lot of those folks over the summer while I was there. And then as the year started, everything got kicked off, football season. But you talk about donkey basketball. Well, we had a thing called donkey polo.
Oh, Lord.
And they'd roll in these donkeys. They'd roll in these donkeys from somewhere out in Alabama. And we'd take all the leather couches and furniture and put them out in the yard.
I love it.
And it was our big party.
Yeah,
and
sure.
It was the funniest thing in the world to watch. they would have, if I remember correctly, they had some monkeys that rode the donkeys too at times.
Goodness.
But those donkeys were a little bit, they were a little bitey. They would.
Yeah, they're not. This is not what they signed up for. Come on.
So
maybe some of them,
I'm
but
like 18, 19, and your job was basically to go get the alcohol for all the older guys and run around. But I was kind of blown away at this whole deal going on.
The very idea.
The whole idea.
The very idea.
I never thought of such, but yet all these guys riding donkeys, playing polo in the yard, and the donkeys are biting everything inside and kicking and
Isn't that funny?
I mean, and it was a
makes
huge
for a great party.
Oh, it was hilarious, man.
It really does.
They got $50,000 worth of furniture out in the yard. I mean, it was just one of these things where I was blown away. I'd been to parties in college just as, but nothing.
Some of them are epic.
Yeah,
though.
this was one of those that was
Some things are epic.
One for the times, man.
There are there's a lot of things about college that people disregard, and you need to know what you're going to do, and you need to take every class that only gets you there, and all these kind of points of view. This was not the point of view when I was going to college. Was that you went to college to learn how to learn better.
Right.
So whatever you were doing, you could do it better when you got from there.
You were a data center back then. You were teaching.
Theoretically, it was supposed to all be in your head,
right.
And keep going, because we didn't have all this other stuff. But it's absolutely true that the social part of it and the community that forms, even if it's the community that you go, those people are crazy, I'm not going over there. It's okay. It's all right, because you got to see that to know.
Yeah, it was great. It was something where everybody kind of, all the different
I'm not
fraternities.
taking my leather couch out here, that sort of thing.
Well, and then the yard, everything was so manicured. We had such a beautiful yard and such great plants and everything. And you had this huge, front yard. And then at the end of that, it was literally looked like a horse race had happened at the Kentucky Derby.
What a mess.
And whoever the people were that took care of all that stuff, I had no envy for them, because that was absolutely a job.
I have seen video of, when you said that about the monkeys, I've seen video of monkeys on burros with croquet mallets, I'm not really sure.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
Donkey polo with monkeys.
Okay.
And then you had, they did that first, and then you put the people on them.
Got
by that
enough.
point, the donkeys weren't really in a good mood.
No, I'm sure. This has been a long day for those dudes. That's
they were
very
kicking
true.
and hee-hawing and
Ray
biting.
says he remembers donkey basketball too, so I'm not crazy, and neither are you. We're okay.
No.
Really good question about getting whether you sodded the lawn last year and it doesn't look so hot. What do I suggest? I suggest that, first of all, if it's not looking good and it's been there for a year, tell me how many weeds. You don't have to tell me, but tell yourself how many weeds are there. If it's still just turf, really all you need is for things to warm up a little bit and start fertilizing it. But you may want to fertilize a little bit more often or a little bit more assiduously. You could even use the new lawn starter fertilizers that they make for lawns, because it's only been there a year. It's still kind of a baby in lawn years. But if you want to get something else, you can get the classic slow release lawn fertilizers that will prepare it, that will feed it through the early part of the season and also prepare it for the coming summer heat. So those are both really good possibilities. Really funny stuff. No, we don't have to cut the potatoes if they only have one. You get to get over. You don't have to do the callus part, either. Ooh, the huckleberry question back when. Spraying them with water worked. Yes, congratulations. The honeybees are happy. I'm so glad. That's wonderful. The one that gets morning sun is loaded with blooms, and the second one has blooms and many berries already forming. That's what I like to hear. It makes my day, and I appreciate you so very, very much for showing me these pictures. They're just beautiful. I miss huckleberries. I think they're cool. It's a good fruit. I know. There's enough fruits. Do you really need that one? Yes, I do. It's different. Of course, there's a lot of things. I need to learn how to make empanada dough, but, before blueberry season. But I'm probably not going to do that either. Now, here's a good question, my friends. What could possibly nest in the Antarctic ice? I've been fascinated by this myself. I literally, we see, when you see things living in Antarctica, you see penguins, you see seals, one thing or another. What do they eat? They can't all eat fish all the time, right? Well, indeed, because now we can put a tether on an underwater robot. I love this. This is so funny. Found more than 1,000 fish nests in the Western Sea off Antarctica, in the Weddell Sea. That's wonderful. we didn't know they were there, and now we can keep up with them, figure out how their populations are doing. I think one of the other pieces of this that tickled me is that they're in a geometric pattern. They're not just scattered hither and thither. It's a colonization that has been formed there so that they can all work and exist together. It's delightful. It's in seafloor terrain that happens and gets exposed after the iceberg breaks off. So this is something that, just like everything on Earth, one thing happens, something else happens. It may be positive, it may be negative. In this case, it's very, very positive. 27 hours of seafloor video. Who do you think pitched that? Hi, I would like to do a study. I want to get my PhD on seafloor video. Let's go.
That's pretty cool.
I like it. I think it's wonderful.
The newest conspiracy that I keep seeing out there is that, you've heard of all this Tartaria. And now they're saying that we froze Tartaria, and it was, to hide it. So it's Antarctica now.
Yeah, so that's what happened. I didn't know that. That's a good one, though.
So maybe that's what they're eating off the old refrigerator stuff.
Maybe so.
Down there in the ice. Never know.
They found 6 different, very distinct geometric nesting patterns. Ooh. Which makes for a great PhD. Needless to say,
you busy.
University of Essex trying to figure this out. But I want to know what. I want to know what that video. I want to know how they got that robot to do that. Who built that thing?
It's a long tether. Cool. I bet they've got a long cord on that thing.
This is the selfish herd theory. Mm-hmm. I know people who live by this. Animals reduce the danger by keeping the neighbors between themselves and anybody that's going to bother them. They're predators. So it's a classic.
Eat them first.
Exactly. It's a classic. So I like that. The central nests gain cover while the edgier ones face a higher risk. Well, yeah, you would figure that. Somebody has to sound the alarm. It's going to be that one out there on the edge, right?
Kind of like they say in the neighborhood, always be in the central.
In the center part of it. That's
that kind of gives you a little buffer around what's going on out yonder.
That's how cul-de-sacs got invented. Mm-hmm. Fascinating stuff. Really good stuff. I do know that a lot of folks are seeing daffodils. I got to watch one this week go from being a bud to this morning being completely blown out. Just 3 different sets of petals. I like complicated daffodils, but I have to tell you, the single magnificent trumpets still get me every time. And they're in bloom all over the place. There's just not enough of them. We need more, and we need pick your owns and all that sort of thing for folks who don't happen to grow them. But daffodils really do have the hardest part is that you expect them and then they're not there. So why would they not be there? Well, they would not be there because maybe you planted them too deep, or maybe they've been there for 20 years and they've sunk.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you that because you see them around houses, old house sites a lot.
Mm-hmm. And as the bulbs grow, they weigh more, and as they multiply, there's more of them, so they may sink a little bit. And of course, we have a lot of heavy soils in our part of the world. That doesn't help either.
What is the success rate on pulling them and spreading them back out after they've gotten so compressed?
I don't know that anyone's measured it, but I'm going to go 90%.
Okay. Yeah,
it's mainly the physical work of doing it, which is why there are gardeners who carry that folding shovel from the Army surplus store in the trunk of their car. And they go out and dig those things up and take them, and sometimes it's in the middle of the night, and sometimes it's, as it should be, with permission of the landowner. So be careful what you're doing. But yes, when you see a clump and it has not bloomed, it needs to be dug up and reset.
I would drive back and forth from New Albany to Oxford a good bit on Highway 30, and there, the hills are beautiful through there.
Gorgeous.
There'd be some old house sites that weren't there anymore. You could still see the clearings, but yet the daffodils,
There's
which they would call
daffodils or spider lilies,
jack straws or whatever people up there call them. Well, they would pop up, and then you would know within about a week. Once those shoots got up, you're like, all right, it's about to get yellow.
Yeah, it's going to be gorgeous.
The next time I come through here, and it was absolutely beautiful.
So beautiful. Yeah. So beautiful. There are things that there's a lot of philosophy that says, human beings, we're here for about a second in terms of the earth. And the earth itself, those flowers are going to be there a lot longer than us, which is a good thing.
As we go back to we had a question here, and I will see if I was correct. I'm not going to say anything yet, but it says, when can I put my zinnia seeds out in Zone 8? What you told me was what late March, early April?
I would rather, because I want it to be warm.
Exactly.
I'd like you to direct seed. We can certainly transplant, and a lot of us do that. Especially, I'm sending out seeds for lance leaf coreopsis and for Profusion zinnias this year. And so you want those mamaonair@yahoo.com.
Of course.
Send me your physical address. But it's really better. Both of those things are better seeded directly into the soil, and you need that warm soil to get them to really get going. Plus, if it's chilly and they can't come up right away, and then it rains, they're going to be in your neighbor's yard. So you may as well, they
don't
just
have
get
any
washed.
feet on them yet.
No, so you got to get them a chance to get themselves situated.
I'll be, growing them in a container versus growing them in the ground, zinnias, to me, the ground has yielded so much more than me doing it in a container or in a large pot where I have to thin them and all. I don't know. I mean, is there a reason why the ground is? They seem, the zinnias, especially the
They
giant
don't
big
like
ones.
to be encased very
Okay.
much.
Yeah.
Now, there are some that will do just fine, but ultimately they're going to outgrow that little pot.
Right.
And so when their roots are not able to get enough sustenance to support the top, the whole thing goes off. You can't do much about it. But in the soil, the zinnia is usually able to put some more roots down and then grow another root to support that top. It's a little more dynamic system. Just for things like that. There are a lot of flowers that really do better in that direct seeding thing that need a rich soil. Zinnias are not one of them. You don't want to throw them on the concrete. Not that I'm not saying some of them might not sprout, they might. But you want something that's workable, but you don't need something that's particularly rich.
Well, that's a great point, because the best I've ever grown in zinnias, and they were amazing, was closest to a blacktop around a mailbox. I put just a little layer of potting soil and
just
roughed it up a
torture
little.
so that they have something to start in.
And then create
But
a little
after
box.
that,
They that's the best I've ever
Yeah.
had. And I want to replicate that and get back to seeing that beauty. So basically what you've just said is stick them in the ground, make sure it's warm, don't have to have the richest soil.
No.
And yet these guys are going to
The only other tip
love
I
to
would
not be
give you is
confined.
to plant half at a time. So just in case bad weather washes them away, or you forget to water and they don't come up for 10 days and you realize you've killed them, you can replant. Because you can plant zinnias, of course, every month, every week, from now through July or even longer, and have zinnias. It doesn't take very long to get them going. They're not as long term as sunflowers, but they do make more flowers faster, so that's fun. Mr. Winwood, I'm glad. We'll be right back. From the Isn't It Obvious file, or as we like to call it around here, the duh file, we have now spent I don't know how much money to determine this particular study. If you have joint pain and osteoarthritis, as frankly, everybody has at some point or another, guess what's the best treatment? Get your butt out of that seat and move.
Yeah, movement.
Now, granted, we can't all get up and do, but you can move other parts of you. You can do anything, whether you're in a chair, whether you're on a couch, whether you're standing up, whether you're walking around, whether you're out in the neighborhood. The point is, move it or lose it. That is, it's like the classic John Lennon line, you are what you eat. That's true, too. All of those things, they're a little bit cliche and they sound kind of, but it's true. And I love that they have had to, now, obviously you have to take care of the situation if you have an issue that's causing these things. Y'all all know that I have moved back to my home state of Louisiana, and I get a chance to come up here and drop in on y'all and talk about them and, all that sort of stuff. I live in the gout capital of the world. So we got a lot of folks need to get up and get moving because they're not comfortable, but they're also not eating so well. So what I'm telling you is you need to do both. But one is not going to work without the other. And I appreciate that they want to nurse my cartilages back to health. It's probably not going to work, but it helps a little bit. It gets things going, and it is much better. And quite frankly, you miss so much. You miss so much of yourself, but you miss the world if you're literally just not going out and not getting up, not moving around. And if you can't move around, move something around. Take yourself outside a little bit. Get yourself another look at stuff. I think it's really important. I like it. I think it's a really good piece of advice, even though it's kind of duh for a scientific study, particularly since today is, in fact, the beginning of a week when we celebrate National Science and Engineering Week. I went to look for various and sundry things that, what are the biggest inventions of the 21st century, the big scientific things? Well, duh, smartphones. But Don't jump. It's a good thing. It's a very, very good thing. But we've also had an awful lot of things between quantum computing taking leaps and bounds to understanding more about that. Also finding out that we've got water on Mars is another thing we didn't know until now. The Higgs boson effect got confirmed. That was a big deal. I remember we talked about it here. We did, in fact, appreciate mapping the human genome, carried that on around here too. And particularly my particular favorite at this moment, the development of the mRNA vaccine processes. It's a different thing. We used to have to talk about live and dead and all those sort of things. Now we just talk about is it going to work or not? And that's part of their research, is to make sure that we were able to find those things that work. So if you have an opportunity to appreciate something this week, it might be science and engineering. You know the difference, don't you? This is from my friend who's an engineer. My friend who's an engineer says that scientists solve problems, engineers fix things. You know, it's like that. What's the difference between the cause, the effort, and the strategy? You have to have both to make all of that work. But she's very strong into the fact that engineers are there to solve problems. And in fact, it was an engineer who figured out how to get I don't do this, obviously hardly any gardeners do, but if you use those nails that are added to your nails and are fancy and are beautiful and have things, painted in them and are gorgeous, that's actually engineering. Getting those things to stay on your nails more than a minute is not automatically happening. And you can't just glue them because you got to take them back off. So that whole process it's an engineering process. The best way to tie up your tomatoes is almost an engineering process, too. It's a piece of that, because what you know is that you don't want the thing you're tying it up with to cut through the stem itself. But we didn't know that until somebody did it, and they had to solve the problem by coming up with an engineering solution that made it work better. And that's why we have plumbing. Anyway, it's true. Somebody had to think of all of this. Ooh, this is a tough one. From Madison. I don't know if this is Joe. It's somebody up there. I planted 3 peonies 5 years ago. God bless you. They've never bloomed. I know. Any hints on making them flower? There's several. What variety it is the first thing. Peonies, like so many other flowering perennial plants, have some that are intended to flower early season, some that are intended to flower mid-season, and some that are intended to flower late season. And in the case of peonies, the peonies start in springtime, and they bloom there's three different seasons, but they're done before the heat gets here. So if we're trying to grow ones that are intended, that have that longer growing time, but they're not going to get to bloom for us in the South until May, they're probably not going to bloom. And you will unfortunately sometimes see peonies with their flowers on tiny little stems that just kind of curl over. Like a rose that doesn't bloom, a cabbage rose or something that just forms and falls over a little bit. That's part of that issue. And there are peonies that can bloom in the South. They're like, if you see an early season peony, it's probably going to do well. But there are only a few of them, and so that might be the problem. The other thing could be, and this is probably easier to solve, if the peonies have been very, very well fertilized, they may be just too rich to put on flower buds. And so you wouldn't want to disturb them right now. Maybe they're about to send up a flower, I don't know. But if you find that they're real crowded and that they've turned in, the one clump that was 4 inches across is now 12 inches across and still just as tight in that same little spot, you'll want to dig and divide them next month and separate them a little bit. That can help too. But you don't have to divide them very often. If peonies are blooming, they say 3 to 5 years. So Sarah Bernhardt is one of the good varieties. There certainly is Fritillaria maximus the others. There are 3 or 4 of them that people have had success with as far south as Hattiesburg. But it's easier. It's easier if you get up a little, South Haven, y'all do better. It's easier just because it's a longer cool season and the hot weather doesn't arrive quite as quickly. Kind of like lettuce. If you're growing lettuce and it bolts every year on you, the chances are real good that you are waiting too late to plant it because you're waiting until it's actually going to be too hot for it to make more lettuce than for it to be triggered into getting itself into bloom. Parsley, all of those things do that too. Sarah Bernhardt, by the way, is pink. It's a beautiful flower. Just a gorgeous one. So since you got Sarah Bernhardt, they should be able to bloom.
The peonies are beautiful. They're very complex and dense.
Oh, yeah.
Is that one of the reasons why it's so hard to grow them in a warmer climate, is because of all of everything's kind of packed in there so tight they just don't get any air?
They don't react well to heat, and so they need that cooler season too. So if it never gets chilly, like that's why, you're not going to do so hot with peonies in Ocean Springs. Now somebody will call me and say, I grow peonies in Ocean Springs, and I will say, thank you very much. Tell me how you do it, because we'd like to tell everybody. But it's true that if you don't have a nice cold period that stays that way, and if you have a heat that approaches too quickly, peonies are just kind of trapped. They don't have what they need to get going. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous flower. They were tested and trialed and grown in fields at the University of Arkansas in the 1940s. Developed some varieties, and they ended up with Sarah Bernhardt and Fritillaria maxima. But I will tell you that, as my mother would say, they were ready for Mother's Day, and you got to take home an armload on the train. Everybody was real impressed because they're such beautiful flowers. All right, we're not going to worry too much. We got another hour of Garden Mama to go today. Thank you so much for being here. Come on in. We'll be back.
I speak very, very fluent Spanish.
But they are, one is leafing out as if, we're about to go somewhere, and the other one's bored, just sitting there. How do two plants right next to each other in the same setting of the same sort and the same type and the same age, how does that happen? Well, that's just what happens. That's what plants are about. A friend of mine had a relative who always said that, it's the innate perversity of things. I kind of like that phrase. I don't use it enough, but there is sometimes a little tweak and a twist. It's like the same thing. I can't grow squash. I still can't grow squash. And I used to be able to grow great squash, but, stuff changes. Today, my friend, is Middle Name Pride Day. Lance is very happy about this.
Yeah, because I go by middle name.
You go by your middle name. I don't have one. And my sister doesn't have one. And we have been bugged about it our entire lives. Not to us, we got what we got. But our parents, and neither one of them liked their middle names, so we didn't get any. It's not the only thing they ever agreed about, but it's certainly one of the more legendary ones, because we both are still here with no middle name. I don't know. I think the first time I ever got a piece of mail that used my name, my first name, and then MNI and my last name as an address, I didn't know what that was, and it means no middle initial. NMI in the middle. So now I still occasionally get things with just a Nellie N Neal. But that person doesn't exist. But I'm happy to, if they send me money, that's fine. Yeah. But it doesn't work like that. It's just a solicitation or something that's pulled out of some ancient list. But we did not get middle names. Of course, my children have 4 names as a result. Because we all rebel, Well, we all rebel in different ways. And until after I had named them and they were growing, I never thought about the fact that I only had 2, so they got 4. But that's actually how it turned out. So.
Well, we have a phone call from Anna giving us an update from Oxford today.
Good.
Said she's about wore out from picking up stuff, but the flowers are looking great, and it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
I hope things
Anna,
things are coming along in Oxford. Y'all know Oxford suffered terrible, terrible, terrible damage. And Anna's been keeping us up to date.
Good morning. Yeah, I did. And I'm still suffering from cutting up wood.
See, that's that bones and joints. Y'all are not having any problem keeping y'all moving. Y'all got to get up there and keep moving. But how's it going?
I tell you, it's a lot of aspirin, I can tell you that. But, you were talking about peonies.
Yes.
And I love peonies, but, they don't grow real well here. But Bowl of Beauty is gorgeous.
Bowl of Beauty. Is that one you can grow in Oxford?
Well, I can. I don't know about anybody else.
Well, but that's the point. It's a variety that we didn't know about, so that's good to know about. Tell me, what color is it?
The Japanese style.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that is different. That is a different plant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems, I've had one in now for about 4 years, 5 years, and it gives me extra blooms every year. And it's in part of a terrace, so I guess it drains real well.
I was going to ask where you had it planted, because they don't like wet feet. That's for sure. That's for sure. How wonderful.
I lost a magnolia tree, and I've got an area which is, right now, not good, but I want to plant some peonies there. So I got online, and I think I must have ended up with Gemini from Google. And we had a nice conversation. So
that's not a peony variety, y'all. That's an AI.
Well, he said it sounded good. Well, it sounded good to plant peonies in this place. And I said, well, I need something else, because it's peonies aren't eaten by deer.
I understand that. I'm not going to say there's not a deer that won't, but that is one of the things we understand, is that they're not crazy about it.
So I wanted to know what I could use as a companion plant, and he suggested lavender.
Another great choice for Oxford. I'm sorry.
That sounded kind of good. So that'd be two. And I thought, well, I kind of like Rose of Sharon. Is there a dwarf one? Because I've got a couple of Rose of Sharons with the white blooms with the red hearts.
Sure,
those are rather nice. And I said, yeah, but unfortunately, the combination of those plus water, I guess, is a bit of a... And he was explaining... It was explaining how I should plant them, which I thought was kind of nice. And I would advise people, if they get kind of stuck, you can start.
They should call Garden Mama, Anna. Because let me tell you something. It's like anything else. It's not local, and I really wish for an artificial intelligence that would tell you what I tell you.
Well, I said to him, I'm in North Mississippi.
No, I understand that. I understand that. I just don't want you to put all your hope there, and I certainly don't want people to start talking to their computers instead of talking to me.
Well, apparently there's a lavender called Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Which seems like it might be a good thing.
It has a better. It's in the group that is better for us. Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you well, that's because we don't have the right conditions. It's some coastal Mediterranean plant, basically. But like my friend said, there's things that you go and you know where they grow really well. And she went to gardens in England, and there were red hot poker plants on an entire. It's Sissinghurst, I think, a whole wall of them at this garden, the red hot poker plants that we try so hard to grow here, and they do well for a little while, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. She said she never planted another one. She'd seen the most beautiful one she was ever going to see. So sometimes that is true. Sometimes you have to carry it in your heart. Lavender is not easy to grow in the deep south.
I know. I've tried many times.
There are a couple that do better than others. So let me know how you do with that one.
Well, I have a feeling that maybe North Mississippi is turning into Mediterranean climate.
Well, you don't have to wonder. You don't have to wonder. We're watching the temperatures at night go up over the decades, and as they do, we get a little bit closer to that zone where we have nothing. Where we for instance. My friend lives in Portugal. The cymbidiums bloom in the ground there, but they didn't 20 years ago. Okay, so it's gotten warm enough there.
Those.
Oh, they're magnificent. Oakland, California can grow cymbidiums in the ground, but the areas around it cannot. It just happens to be a little microclimate that treats them very nicely. So there's always a change happening. And the pictures of the cymbidiums from Portugal, I'm telling you, are you just stay there and enjoy it. But it is true that you got to find one that works, and then you also have to make adaptations in your world to try and get some of these things to go that you didn't think were going to make it.
It's going to be a 3-year project because peonies take a while to bloom. In the meantime, Bowl of Beauty is great.
Okie doke. Well, thank you. I appreciate you letting us know. We'll pass that on to everybody.
Okay, dear. Bye-bye.
Thank you, darling. See you later. It's like we're lucky to have correspondents. We're lucky to have people that talk to us and tell us what's happening hither and thither. It's important to know. I got to say, though, I don't know about it. Lavender and peonies. I can't wait for her to get them going because if anybody can, Anna can, and it'll be fun to see. But woo, that's a lot. That's a lot. For our texture, it is peony. Here in Mississippi, a lot of people pronounce it peony, as if it was, as if it was 4 syllables instead of 3. Peony, and it's actually peony. But she's not saying penny plant. She is saying peony. Okay. You know what else is going on today? I didn't know this. I knew barn owls were different from other owls, but I didn't realize they were actually segregated into their own world. But they are. That's crazy. But barn owls have heart-shaped faces.
Yeah.
True owls have round faces. I knew that. I didn't realize that we had segregated them and we count them and we put them some over here and some over there, but we do that as human beings. And in fact, that's where we're at. But it is it's interesting because today is Owl Day, and I actually, it's a Festival of Owls week. I got up this morning and was outside before daylight, and of course that's the first thing you hear, is the owls calling to one another and I guess talking about where breakfast is or something. I don't know how I don't know their conversation, but they do tell you what's going on.
I love listening to them.
Yeah.
Got a lot in the neighborhood back behind the house, but also getting out into the Delta, just listening to them communicate over so broad of a distance, and they take their turns.
Oh, yeah.
It's really structured and very unique.
We have that, and they do look wise. They have that gaze that they give you. It's not that they're smarter than there is. It's not that they're smarter than us, but they seem to have a greater focus, perhaps, than we do. And that's, of course, unfortunately, how they sometimes take our pets and things out of the yard, because you've got to be careful of those kinds of things.
They have those Elizabeth Holmes eyes, they're very open.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's true. I like that. That's very true. That's who that is.
Looking.
But between barn owls and snowy owls and Eurasian eagle owls and great horned owls and barred owls, I love barred owls. Oh gosh, to me they're gorgeous and scary all at once. But the funniest one, and the one that I would have probably separated out, would have been these guys with the long ears. There's some owls you never see their ears, and there's other ones that they look like, that's the whole point, and I don't how these things evolve, I can't possibly tell you, but I just do think that they're fascinatingly different. This is the strigiforms, is the name of their family, and in fact they are very, very different in the way that they habitate and what they do, but the main way that they're separated is by round face and heart-shaped face. Pretty fun. We need more owls. Robin Amory, is it too late to trim knockout roses? If they have not started to leaf out yet, you're in good shape. No, don't do a lot. I mean, you don't want to chop them all the way down. See, that's another one. I say that, and then I'll walk out of here, and there'll be somebody with a chainsaw across the street taking out knockout roses, which will be gorgeous in 2 months. I realized that these are all horticulture points of view rather than gardener points of view, is that we really shouldn't work too hard to prune them at this point. But if they haven't begun to grow yet, it's okay to go ahead and do the trimming that you need to do. Love hearing those owls in the woods around Halloween. Oh, yeah, that is good stuff. You're right about that. That's fun. You're absolutely right. I don't know if, we name teams after yellow jackets, but we don't really go for owls as much as we should. It seems.
You got the rice owls. Yeah.
I was just thinking of rice, but I can't think of another one.
I'm not aware of one.
I don't know of another one.
The Richmond spiders, the rice owls. There's a few of them out there that just
There's a few that are
going out on a limb on their mascot.
Exactly. And I'm not I know it's not the real one, but come on, y'all. The best one's still the fighting okra.
They never should have gotten rid of that.
Hello, Delta
If it was
State.
ever official.
I need a new T-shirt. Mine finally wore out, so somebody's going to have to. Maybe we can do that. We can make a garden mama with some of our favorite, not exactly really mascots on it.
Yeah, so we don't get the copyright infringement.
Right, we don't get in trouble, but we can have some interesting images. That would be kind of fun.
You get Claire right on that one.
We'll get her. We'll get her started on that. Or another reminder for y'all today is the Brookhaven Camellia Show. It's going on right now in Brookhaven. You need more information about it, just go to Brookhaven. Trust me, it's going to be fine. They're at the Brookhaven building on Beltline. And the events go on this right now, and they'll go on this afternoon. Don't miss it. So much fun, such beautiful plants. I was lucky enough to grow up with camellias, and they are one of those things that you work on and you wait for, and then they just bloom all over the place, and you can almost take them for granted, I love that. I think that's delightful. Yeah, daylight savings time starts tonight. People are texting me. Daylight savings time starts tonight? Yes, it does.
Benjamin Franklin, we can saddle with that.
Isn't it? I believe that's my memory. I don't really know that, but yeah. Now, of course, it's been made into legislation, and there's still places that don't do it.
Oh, I love the western part of Arizona where
it's like, no.
They don't do daylight savings time in that western corner, and the time changes at the western corner into California. Like you don't even know what time it is over there. If you're in the rest of the country, like,
and
what
that's
time
the
is it
way
really?
they like it.
Yeah, they love it. Like, we want it a little confusing around the alien world over here.
We want y'all to try and figure out where you are.
It's fascinating. I always go back this time of year, twice a year, and go, I wonder how that works over there. I mean, like, it's almost like
what time is that basketball game?
Am I making a living better by having these 2-hour window? I mean, like, somebody's game.
Somebody figured it out. Yeah, like somebody had a point of view about it.
Drive an hour over here, it's 2 hours earlier, or 2 hours later.
That's true.
2 hours earlier.
That's
true. So you can go. Yeah, it's amazing that you still have those pockets.
Well, and we didn't have any of that, of course, until trains went across the country.
Right.
Because we didn't really need to know. But if you're in Des Moines and you need to get on a train, you need to know whether it's 11 or 12. Yeah. And the same thing is, so those things are kind of confusing out west too. Which way is it? I recently realized that I could, in fact, take one of those Amtrak magnificent deals up and down the West Coast, and I have enough friends that I could go and visit that I would literally spend a week on a train, because the way that works, of course, is that you can get off the train for a certain number of hours and still get back on because you've got a ticket that takes you through that particular process. How cool is that? Luckily, it doesn't go across the Southwest, because then I would be Phoenix. What time is it in Phoenix? What time is it in Albuquerque? Wait, we're in Tucumcari, New Mexico. What time is it over here now? Because you wouldn't know. It's really fun. Ooh, crepe myrtles. There's always a question about crepe myrtles, and I love crepe myrtles when they're in bloom and look nice. I have one that wants to send out enough whips I've never whipped anybody, but I sure could from this tree. If I needed switches, this would be the place to go.
If you had a horse, it'd be looking at you like,
would be like, get away from me.
Every time you got close to that tree.
Right,
yeah.
That's right, get away from me. And how do you begin pruning these trees when they haven't been pruned in 10 years?
With a great ladder.
I'm going to tell you that at this point in the year, they've probably begun to at least swell their buds, if not leaf out. So pruning is not good, except for the kind of pruning that you can do to anything all year long. Anything dead, anything crisscrossing. If you've got branches that instead of going up, they go sideways, you can cut that off because you don't want to return that. And if you've got things that are two are rubbing one against the other, you can take one of those out completely because they're not going to do well if they're crowded like that. But mostly at this time of year, it's things that are dead. If you have old seed pods still hanging there, that's another thing you can certainly get rid of. But there's not, how you begin after 10 years is as little as possible. Now, there are people out there, I got to tell you, I saw some this week that I should have taken a picture of for my "This Will Embarrass You If It's Yours" collection. So we can talk about it, but I'm going to tell you as little as possible and take out what's dead, and I hope the flowers are good. Let's frog out of here. Stick around, y'all. This is the Garden Mama Show. I wish I could play guitar.
Especially like that.
Even when I tried to learn, I knew I'd never be this good, though. No question. Leo Kottke, for those of you who don't know. And yes, it is Kottke. Look him up. Can I plant foxtail ferns in my containers outside now? Yes. unless the foxtail ferns have been, fancy treated in your bathroom, in which case you may want to wait a couple of weeks. But if they've been at the garden center or they've been in other places at your yard and you're adding them to the containers, sure, absolutely. Absolutely. Such a great idea, y'all. This is a really, really good one. Joan says that because she also has had trouble with lavender, she suggests catmint or catnip. I like catmint better as a plant myself, because it would be so pretty with the peonies and it has that color. But what she was saying was that hers tends to not stand up straight as long as she would like it to. And so are there varieties that do that. The one that I really like, and yes, some of them do kind of tend to flop over even if the cat doesn't sit on them, because cats sometimes will cause that to happen. So nothing like going out and looking at that and seeing all that. Remind me to talk about Oreos here in a minute. I see that planter on SuperTalk.tv. I know you don't know what that is, but I promise those are Oreos. Anyway, so here's the one. The one that I really like is called Cat's Pajamas, and I know it's a proven winner's plant, which means it's got, John Rader's breeding and everything behind it. It's been tested, trialed, and run over with a truck to be sure it can survive. It's a great program. And I know that those are also available mail order if you can't find it locally. She was saying she was having trouble finding things locally. So I want to encourage y'all. This is going to be a tough year for garden centers. I want to encourage y'all to go spend money. And I mean that honestly. They have the plants, they have the advice, they have the smarts, and they have people working locally in your community that you want for your neighbors. These are good folks. And every industry has its challenges. We already see some of these things. You may notice that some of your 4-inch pots seem to be a little bit shallower or a little bit smaller than they used to be. That's because they cost so much to ship, and those soils are so light now because of that, which means that you will, when you transplant, you'll use the soil that they're growing in, but you're also going to want to add some of your other stuff to it. So give yourself a chance. Go to local garden centers first, from my point of view, and then go to the master gardeners or the garden clubs or the whatever group it is that's having a sale in your local area, because those things that are grown locally. And I tell you what, if you can find somebody that grew heirloom tomatoes in your locality from the tomatoes they grew last year, they saved the seeds and do it, buy those plants and spread them around. Heirloom tomatoes are always better the second year and going forward because the plants themselves have had an opportunity to acclimate. So when they make seed, the seed that are viable are better for where you are. It's just logical. And it's also scientific. It's not just logical. It's also scientific. So give yourself that opportunity. And yeah, that's Proven Winners doesn't pay me for that, but I sure am a fan. So
I'm so ready for an heirloom tomato, though. I haven't seen one yet. I haven't really gone digging yet.
Well, that's because it's $5 a pound. You walk right by it. I mean, and at this point they are grown in greenhouses, so they're not the best that they will be later on. But yeah,
so wait a little bit.
I bought a Cherokee Purple not too long ago, and it was okay. I've never had a Cherokee Purple that was only okay, but I had to realize I was pushing the season. It wasn't the plant or the people or the tomato itself. It was me. I was going a little too...
Patience is a virtue with tomatoes and heirlooms, right?
Patience is a virtue anyway, and I really wish I had a larger, bigger quantity of that. I'm not a patient person. I love this. Corinne says, every single plant needs fertilizer. With some rain coming in, would it be okay to put the fertilizer out before or after the rain? I've always thought afterwards, but I wanted to get your opinion. It's mostly afterwards because you don't want heavy rain if you knew it was going to just gently rain for like 3 hours, on your lawn or something, you're not putting out lawn fertilizer right now. But if you were putting out fertilizer at that point, that'd be lovely. But quite frankly, with rain as hard and heavy as we're likely to have in this next couple of days, as Lance says all week, in fact, it would be after that, because otherwise it's a waste. You've ended up with it going too far down the road, so to speak. So smart. But it's a good question. People will tell you one thing and then they'll tell you the other. And I think sometimes some people feel like you're giving the plant a reservoir. And that's true more with granulars, obviously, than it is with liquid fertilizers. But even the granular fertilizers can be washed away. So be aware of that, and you'll do better with them. Oh, my goodness. Andrea's got some gorgeous, it's just, they're beautiful. My goodness, they look like dieties, but they're not. They're beautiful. You've really done a beautiful job this year. Those are lovely. How fun. How fun. Oh, I love this. Greg's got our friend the asparagus fern. They survived the winter. I hand pruned out a lot of the dead. What can I fertilize with to get them that dark green? Anything. I would suggest a soluble, though, because it's a very tight basket. You'd like to put something in the water that then can percolate in through the soil. And if you do that now and then do it again in about 3 weeks with a good balanced green, not balanced green, but balanced formula fertilizer, 20-20-20 or something like that, you'll have plenty of green. I love asparagus ferns. They're so spiffy. They're beautiful looking. They're hard to kill. And they also have a great texture that not a lot of other plants bring to the setting. So I think that's a really good choice. Really, really nice. Good one. That's pretty. Really pretty. I'm really not sure whether you want me to start into this world because it's an argument. Are you an Oreo fan, Lance?
No, I like Hydrox better.
Okay,
no, I'm kidding. I love Oreos. Love them.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was kidding. That's the Canadian version, Hydrox.
No, Hydrox is the original Oreo.
But it's Canadian, right?
No.
No, it's not? Okay,
No.
I thought that was their thing.
No. Well, I mean, I think they do more of them there. You want to know why? Because when Oreo came along and bested Hydrox, it was by putting more stuff that was sweet in the center. Hydrox are not as sweet and don't have as much center to them. They're a cookie with a filling as opposed to filling wrapped around with cookies like Oreos are. I like Oreos. I'm not saying I don't. But Hydrox didn't get Hydrox got a bad rap in that particular world simply because they came along first. They were the very first ones, the Loose Wilds Biscuit Company. And I love that they were marketed, this is just 1908. You know what they called them? The aristocrat snack.
Nice.
I love that.
I watched a video, it must have been a couple months ago, of a guy with a blowtorch, and he had a bunch of Oreos, and he blowtorched them, and they wouldn't catch fire, and they wouldn't melt or anything. So, not sure what's in those
Not
days,
too much in there, but
they're pretty good.
Now, when they first started with all this, of course, this white fluffy stuff was made with lard.
Yes.
And a lot of people quit eating them because they didn't taste the same when they went to vegetable oil. And now they've gone to double stuff and all of these other things, which is essentially just creamy stuff with cookies around it as opposed to cookies with a filling, which is what Hydrox still is. Hydrox was invented, though, in Kansas City in 1908. And they are, I love that the name came from, again, this is 1908. You know how impressed we were with ourselves and our science in 1908? We just wanted everything to have a little bit of an edge to it. That's how we ended up naming Hydrox, because hydrogen and oxygen at that time symbolized purity and sunshine. Unfortunately, it also sounded like something you clean your house with.
Yeah, it was like a hovercraft.
Yeah, so the Hydrox, when they came along, and when Oreo came along and started displacing them, my grandfather used to say that if they told you they had new and improved it, it was going to cost more and was not going to work any better. And in the case of Hydrox cookies, apparently they were purchased by whatever Keebler and changed just enough. Later on, it was by Kellogg's, but it was changed just enough. And then they changed the name of them, and then they stopped them all together, and that's why you can only find them in Canada.
That's how it got
isn't
there.
That wild?
Yeah, okay.
Because they kept them. It's a darker, more intense cookie, too. You know, probably more expensive to make. I don't know. But our favorites, the Oreos, National Biscuit Company, Nabisco, they came along in 1912. It's not like they weren't back there in the early days. It was just a different cookie and not as popular, I guess, because it wasn't an aristocrat. But they first sold them in Hoboken, New Jersey. March the 6th, 1912. Oreos are the best-selling cookie in the world.
In the world. That's amazing. That is an accomplishment because the world is big, and
yeah, there's a lot of cookies.
There's a lot of cookies out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of cookies. So anyway, it's just one of those things. Today's Oreo Day. Well, how do Oreo get to have a day? Because we all eat them, apparently. And it is one of those things that even if you don't eat it, you recognize it. That's why the big begonia in the Oreo planter is so fun at SuperTalk.tv. We thank Mark for that. he brought me some cuttings of that begonia. I'm afraid they're going to eat my house, but it's a big old begonia. Beautiful white flowers, too. It's not in bloom right now. But it's one of those things that it's a beautiful plant, and I'm really glad to have it. Now I got to find room for it because it will grow. It will, in fact, grow. Today's no homework day. Somebody will be glad to hear that.
Yeah, I'm not doing any.
I'm probably not doing any. But at any rate, so many things going on. I hope that if you're interested in cut flower growing, whether you're a professional or whether you're somebody who just wants to grow more of them, you'll join me and Flower Growers of Mississippi 2, which is the name of the group on Facebook. We got another class coming up on March the 17th, and it's a Tuesday evening. I'm real surprised that we're teaching in the evening, but it has turned out to be really fun, and it's a great time. If you can come home from work, take a look at it, and at the same time, it's going to be, it'll be in the archive and ready for you to pay attention to it at any point that you need to do so if you don't have time that day. Once you join into the group, once you purchase your membership in that group and these classes, then it's yours forever. So you don't have, if you can't make it that particular day, you will be able to go, you'll be able to go back and look at it at any point that you want to. So much fun. Growing flowers is a lot of fun. Growing vegetables is fun. And in fact, looking at them is fun too. So that's one of the reasons I feel like some people will want to grow cut flowers because we would like to have a business. Some people would like to grow cut flowers because they want to decorate the church every day. Some people just want a cut flower row in their garden. And if you understand the principles of growing cut flowers, sure, you can grow anything, but if you understand the principles of what makes a good cut flower and how to get there, you will do a better job and your flowers will be prettier. So why not? Indeed, why not? Well, I have a question because, Lance and I have both worked in food service in various decades. Why do we tip? It's a good question, isn't it?
Yeah, they don't get paid a lot on the hourly.
Even when we know we won't see that server again, we still feel compelled to tip. You would understand, you might, if somebody delivered something to your house on a regular basis, you might make a point to tip that person. Or if you were consistently going to the same restaurant, you would certainly like a favorite bartender or waiter or somebody, and you'd certainly tip them. But it turns out, according to this study from Tel Aviv University, people who really value great service, like you and I who have been in the position of not making enough money and providing great service, will tip more than average. And then everybody else has to adjust upwards. This really takes a lot of things off the hook, though, you understand. This puts the price of what you're buying and the person running that and the person that sets the wage for that service person completely on the side. Puts it all on you to make sure they have enough money to get home that night. That's tough, and that's real. But I will tell you, if we could come to a more plausible understanding, it would probably help all of us. You've heard about restaurants after COVID who decided, okay, well, our staff needs to make enough money to live, so we're not going to charge tips. We're just going to raise our prices to go along with what the food actually costs. A few have done well. Most have not. Because I don't know how to tell you this, but preparing food for you in a restaurant and putting it on your table is expensive. And more expensive than you thought. Sometimes more expensive than the people thought who were doing it. But I like the notion that social pressure falls into this in some ways. There are a lot of people that are very, very resentful that there's a form as soon as you... Do y'all tap to pay? I love tap to pay. As soon as you pay for your whatever it is, it shows you do want to tip. They don't ask you if you are. They ask you how much you want to tip. 10%, 20%. At least hit the 10%. Come on, y'all. You can do that. Stick around. We're not going to tip you. We're not even going to ask for it. But we are going to be right back. Oh, yes. I have to say, it's been a long time since I had to heft a Leslie speaker into anything. But for as big and heavy and hunky as they are, they sure do make a great sound, y'all. There's people out there going, yeah, I can remember all that whoosh, whoosh, that's how they start up. Something about equipment over time, and you hear people talk about, oh, I used to love this or love that or the other thing. You don't hear people talk about microwaves like that. You hear them talk about musical instruments. You even hear people talk. There are people who wish we still used carts to put commercials in because it did work well and it created a lot of jobs. But wowie zowie, we've kind of surpassed that in this world. If you're a computer whiz like Lance, you can do these things. But other folks, well, back in the olden days, we had to literally know what was on that wall before we put it on. Oh, my goodness, a lot of conversations in radio. A lot of radio to do in this world, and it's always a joy to have a chance to be in the studio with all of y'all. It's fun. Talking about that particular lily that was in the picture, she says that it was, looks like similar to the ones that her grandmother grew. I think it's a Zephrantes. I think it's a rain lily. And if it's not, Andrea will tell us that. But if you look it up and tell me and I'm wrong, I'll figure out something else. But rain lilies are classic because they'll bloom, and then when it rains again, they'll bloom, for a moment, and then they bloom again later. Some are pink, most are white, but these are really pretty, and I'm really happy that she let us see those. That's really fun. Oh my goodness, that's pretty. That's lovely. Lemon tree made only one lemon last year and full of blooms now. Good. Call the bees. Tell them come over and get busy. Get busy. That's fun. Lemon trees do have, some years are better than others for many reasons, but the trees themselves seem to have a good cycle. If they give you a whole lot this year, next year's not going to be so terrific, but it's because the tree might need a moment of rest, a season to get going again. And yes, you can continue to take care of them and fertilize them, and that will help keep them strong, but you still may not get quite as many lemons the next time. That is true. Well, I don't know. The koalas have bounced back. Not everybody likes koalas, surprisingly. I mean, I realize not even everybody likes pandas, but you would think everybody liked koalas. They did suffer a tremendous population decline that had to do with their concentrated populations and their lack of habitat and the changes that we put them through, but it came down to their lack of genetic diversity. So they had to go and get some other koalas. They had to move some around and have them live over there and this and that and the other thing so that they would come together and make koalas with stronger genetics. And it's worked. Their rapid rebound helps to explain how genomic research works, first of all, but it's also a great joy for all of us who just like koalas and think they're cool. I don't want to grow all that bamboo, but, I'm glad they like it. And
don't they eat eucalyptus, too?
They eat lots of eucalyptus. Major amounts of eucalyptus, which is another one that is beautiful, but you don't necessarily, I don't want a forest of it. It's a lot. I come from the era when everybody thought eucalyptus was going to solve everything, but it's just a great tree, but it's not going to solve everything by any means. On that same category of rebounding populations, I have good news for old creatures. That would be like me. The humpback whales are making a wonderful recovery, but guess what? Most of the pups that are the healthiest are being sired by the older animals, older males, older animals. How do you even know? Do you ask them? Do they fill out a form? I mean, come on. But the new study tells us that as they rebound after the whaling of the previous centuries, that the older males are actually winning the race. They attribute it to their experience in singing. So the ladies like it, and they'll get
serenading.
Yeah. Hello. I mean, we're back to that. How do you keep the population going? You got to have a place to rest. You got to have food. You got to have water, and you got to nest. You got to find a way to figure out how to make more. And in this case, their ability to sing and a little bit of beating up on the babies, the younger males also still helps. Those older dudes are not necessarily as weak as they might look, and they'll come and just take over the situation. I think that's kind of cool. I think it certainly ensures greater genetic diversity than if the younger males were predominant. You would know that you were getting the children of the children in that pool. But in this case, it's working out a different way. I just think that's extremely crazy and wonderful. Who decided to do that? Who decided they needed to study that? Thank you. We appreciate you. University of St. Andrews in Scotland? Is that where that is? I think that's where that is. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Here's the headline, folks, that you may not want to know. Oh, hers was a Tulipa clusiana. I'm sorry. It wasn't a rain lily. It had such skinny leaves, I didn't recognize the species of the plant. Tulip clusiana is one of the very few that is actually perennial in this part of the world, and so I'm happy that Andrea's growing those. But I got to tell you, rain lilies are fun, too. Rain lilies are lots of fun. Thanks for cluing me in. I always, she got them from Brent and Becky's. If y'all don't know Brent and Becky's bulb people, you should. She ordered 3 different ones. You don't know what this is. But the point is that Southern Bulb in Texas and Brent and Becky's up in the Carolinas are wonderful sources for Southern bulbs that you're not going to find any in other places. And they're all lovely people, too. So you can be confident you're doing business with folks that have a point. They're bulb people. They're plant people. And that's a great one. That's wonderful. Anyway, back to what I was thinking. Here's this is the headline for today that you will take to the dinner table tonight and no one will believe you, but it will be true. Remember last week it was about marmalade being sunshine? I still don't believe that. But in this case, half of Amazon insects could face dangerous heat stress. What? That's right. It's getting hot even in the Amazon. Good grief. That tells us more than we might want to know about things. But when you consider how difficult it is for there are so many more tropical plants that need pollinating than there are in the other temperate zones and the other zones. We need more and we have less. There are few of the insects that can do the pollinating, and the idea that they're going to then suffer from heat stress, that's a problem. That's a problem. The plants don't seem to be suffering nearly as much as the others, as their pollinators are. Wow, I don't like that. But I need to know it, and so do you. So it's an interesting thing to consider for sure. I appreciate y'all. Don't forget heifer.org. You can donate there. You can also get in touch with me, and I'll put you in touch with the beautiful ladies in Purvis, and they'll get you your bee pins to support it. If you want to do goats and cows, go to heifer.org. It's a great program. A couple of other things. Camelia's show today, still talking about the flower growers of Mississippi. And I don't know, daylight savings time. Okay, daylight savings time starts tonight. We know.
Just go to bed a little earlier, huh?
I don't know. Those of us who...
Like jet lag.
Yeah, those of us who tend to be up here and there during the night, we're not going to look at the clock. So, what difference does it make? I hope you're not looking at the clock. I hope you're looking at your garden. Thank you for deciding to be part of the Garden Mama Show today. See you next week.
The Garden Mama Show is a production of SuperTalk Mississippi Media. Download past episodes at supertalk.fm.